Thankfulness is, it's Thanksgiving this week, so I'm going to talk about thankfulness a little bit. Thankfulness is a good thing that leads to all of those other good things that we just read about. Then thanklessness, that's the opposite of thankfulness. Thanklessness probably leads to some bad things, right? I mean, if thankfulness is a good thing that leads to good things, you would take the opposite of that first good thing, you'd likely get a lot of opposite results. And so thanklessness is this kind of condition that I think is very evident in the world today and is causing a lot of bad things to happen. I want to give you some examples of what thanklessness is and what thanklessness does. Someone who is thankless, someone who doesn't appreciate what they have, someone who doesn't appreciate their life, the things around them, they are far more likely to want more things, right? So that kid last year that tried to steal your iPod in the cafeteria because you had a nicer iPod than he did, his iPod wasn't, he didn't appreciate his iPod or his MP3 player, or maybe all he had was like this little radio and he couldn't be thankful for it. If he was thankful for it, he wouldn't want more, and so he steals your iPod or tries to take $10 from you or tries to steal your french fries when you're not looking, because when you can't appreciate the things that you do have, it makes you really, 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 really want things that you don't have. Someone who is thankless is much more likely to do things that you and I think we would never do to get that thing that we want because they just don't like the things that they have. Being thankless is when you get jealous because your life isn't good enough. You can't appreciate how good your life is. I want her life. When you start with thanklessness, you get all of these bad things: jealousy, envy. You start thinking about stealing, taking, cheating, whatever you can to get what you don't have. The cure to thanklessness is thankfulness, when you can honestly say to yourself, you know what? The things that I have are good enough. The things that I have, that's plenty. My family is great. When you can appreciate the things that you have in your life, then you stop wanting to, beg, borrow, and steal, do whatever you can to get the things that someone else has in their life. And so that's why I think it's so important to talk about thankfulness, not just because, probably at your dinner table, just like at my dinner table, someone's going to make us go around the table this Thanksgiving, and we're going to have to say what we're thankful for. And what happens there is that a bunch of people say a bunch of things that they don't really mean, but that they really think sound good. Now, some of the people in my family, my aunts and uncles and grandmas and all of these cousins they're going to be there, some of them are legitimate. I've got a cousin who's in the military, and he's coming back for Thanksgiving, and I imagine he's going to say something like, I am so thankful that I get to spend this holiday with my family again. And that is going to be a legitimate answer, right? I mean, that is going to be an absolutely legitimate answer, but someone is going to say something like, I'm thankful for all this food. Only moments after saying, oh, this turkey's dry. Oh, you didn't make cranberry sauce? There's only one pie? I'm thankful for this food. No, you're not! This is what we do all the time. We talk about thankfulness because we think we know what we're supposed to say when someone asks us what we're thankful for. And so we say the things, I'm thankful for my family. But you might say that just an hour after you got into a fight with your mom and your dad because you think they're being unfair about something. Amen? Someone might say, I'm thankful that I get to have a quality education, because that sounds like a good thing to say. You might say that. I'm thankful for a quality education. Only moments after complaining about your teachers and how hard homework is and how much you hate school, I'm thankful for a quality education. No. You can say it, but that doesn't mean that you are. And so thankfulness is more than just a list of things that we say and pretend like we mean. The video says thankfulness is a condition of the heart. And the thing about that word condition is that conditions are generally things we can change. Someone who has poor health conditions can change those conditions. Someone who has, prone to diseases or whatever can change a lot of those by exercising and eating better. And so when I say that thankfulness is a condition of the heart, what I think I mean is that that's something that you can control. If you woke up every morning and looked around your room and looked around your house and looked around at your family and just thought for a little while, just thought for a little bit, this is pretty good. If you would say that to your parents every now and again, I know I give you a hard time, Mom. I know I give you a hard time, Dad, but I'm really glad that you're my parent. When you start to exhibit faithfulness, thankfulness on the outside, you're going to find that it's going to change the condition of your heart on the inside. Now, this is the first thing that I want you to know about thankfulness. Thankfulness is a choice that you make that is never affected by the list of things that you have. I was talking with someone last week who said it would be easier to be thankful if I had blank. If I had the new iPhone 4S, I would definitely be thankful for that. It would be really easy for me to be thankful if I had the iPhone 4S until the iPhone 5P comes out or whatever this thing is, right? My wife wants an iPad. I think she'd be really thankful if she had an iPad. Until she saw someone with an iPad too. I think we're kind of wired this way that we think that if we had all the things we wanted, we'd be thankful for them. But what we don't realize is that in the world that we live in today, the list of things that we want now is always going to be different than the list of things that we want tomorrow. Which means I could give you everything that you wanted. You could make a list. I could be Santa Claus and give you every gift, every object that you think you wanted. And a week from now, you would come back to me and say, hey, Aaron, I was at my friend's house and they had this cool video game that I didn't even know existed. But now I know it exists and I need it. This is kind of the way that our culture works, right? We're never really happy with the things that we have. And I think a part of that is because we live in a culture that has been taken over by marketing and advertising. And there's this new trend in marketing and advertising. I want to tell you a little about it. How many of you know the new tagline for the iPhones in the commercials? If you don't have an iPhone, then you don't have an iPhone. Now, some highly paid, super educated guy who probably wears fancy suits got paid an awful lot of money to come up with that statement. If you don't have an iPhone, well, you don't have an iPhone. And I was reading about the campaign because I think it's interesting that their campaign was basically just to say, hey, you don't have an iPhone. You don't have an iPhone. Why would they want to make such a big deal out of saying that twice? And I found out the iPhone's two biggest competitors are the Android and the BlackBerry, right? And so they initially had two versions of this commercial. The first version said, if you have a BlackBerry, you don't have an iPhone. And then the other one said, if you have an Android, you still don't have an iPhone. And when they tested these with these focus groups and market studies and whatever it is that these marketer people do, when they tested these, they found that those ads did not work nearly as well as when they just said, if you don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPhone. And the reason that they think that was is because they did not want for any part of a second to remind someone about anything that they might have. The purpose of the commercial is to make you forget that you may already have a phone. You may already have a fine phone. They do not want you to remember that. All they want you to know is the one fact. You don't have an iPhone. And so we get commercials like that, and you read magazines, and you see the sides of buses, and there's billboards. And the one idea that advertisers have found is the most effective way to get you to buy their thing is to tell you 100 times that you don't have that thing. Which means that 100, 200, 300 times a day, you are just getting this message. You don't have this thing. There is no one out there reminding you of all the great things you have. You're just getting that one message. Yeah, you don't have this. You don't have this. You don't have this. And no one who wants to make money off of you anyway is going to stop and remind you that you have a pretty good life. I mean, I'm looking out here, and I don't think that anyone is naked. Because you have clothes. They might not be the greatest clothes in the world, but you guys look pretty good to me. You have some clothes. A couple weeks ago, I lost $40, and it sucked. It did. I mean, I could have bought like a couple pairs of jeans or like a quarter of the iPhone or all these things that I could do with $40. I could have done with $40, and I just lost it. I didn't know where it went. It was in my pocket. Later, it was gone. I don't know if someone like pickpocketed my wallet and then took the money out and then reverse pickpocketed my wallet back into my pocket again. I don't know if like ninjas broke into my house and stole $40. It was just gone, right? And the lesson that I learned when I lost $40 is, hey, it sucked. But we still had enough money to eat. We still had enough money to pay the rent. We still had enough money to clothe our kids. I still had enough money to put gas in the car. Would I have liked that $40 back? Yes, but I was okay. And there's a lesson that I learned about God when I lost $40. And that was, I'm a youth pastor. I don't make a ton of money being a youth pastor. My wife is a college student. She actually makes less money being a college student than I do. So we are not loaded with money. And it's real easy for me to just think about how we don't have an awesome car, and we don't have all this stuff, and we don't have as much money as I wanted. But when I lost $40, none of us died. And what I realized was that God, even though I may think sometimes that I wish I had more money, God has given me even more money than I actually need. Otherwise, losing $40 would have meant someone's not paying a bill. The cell phone's not getting paid. The heat's not getting paid. The internet's not getting paid. Something's got to go. But I had at least $40 more than I needed, because when it was gone, we were still okay. There's this story in the Bible that I'm sure you've heard before, but I want to tell it to you in a way that maybe you haven't heard it. Maybe there's a verse in here you haven't picked up on. And that's the story where Jesus feeds 5,000 people with one basket full of bread and fish. Feeds 5,000 people with this basket with a little bit of bread and a little bit of fish. It's a miracle. You all know the story is that Jesus was preaching, and his disciples said, we really got to let them go. God, you've been talking for a long time, Jesus. I don't know if you're aware of how long you've been talking, but it's dinner time. We got to let them go home and get some food, blah, 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 blah. And Jesus said, no, we'll feed them with what we got. And they said, well, we don't have anything. And then this little boy comes up. He's like, I got a basket of fish and bread. And Jesus says, all right, that'll do. And the disciples give him the crazy look. I imagine the disciples gave Jesus the crazy look a lot, like, and Jesus said, hey, just start passing it out. It's going to be okay. So, of course, they start passing out the food, and everyone eats, and people come up for seconds, and then they go back again. And, interesting fact about this story. It only counts the men, because back then they only counted men. So it was 5,000 men. Their women and children didn't get counted, but they still got to eat. So we're probably talking like close to 10,000, maybe 15,000. I don't even know. And they all eat. Everyone eats until they're full. That's what it says. It says everyone ate until he was full. So this wasn't like the miracle where Jesus said, yeah, we got bread. We can give everyone food. Everyone gets one breadcrumb. No, everyone ate until they were full. You guys have heard that story before, right? Does anyone know what comes next? What comes next is that the disciples come back with 7 baskets full of food left over again. I think that's the most beautiful part of the story. Jesus did the miracle with the one basket of food, and the disciples come back with 7 baskets that are left over from before. They finished with 6 more baskets of food than they started with after everyone had eaten. And I think the lesson here is that this is what God does. God gives us more than we need. God blesses us not just to the level that we need to survive, but God blesses us in abundance. God is the family member, and I don't know if you have a family member like this who every year at Christmas wants to give you the perfect, 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 perfect gift. And they spend all this time because they don't just want you to enjoy your gift, they want you to be blown away. As a father, this is when someone gets my kids a toy that takes batteries and includes batteries. I really enjoy that. But for some of you, you might know someone who every year they give you a gift and you're just like, man, that's awesome. That's incredible. I wish I could give gifts like that. This is what God does every day. He takes pride, or whatever God takes in these things. God takes pride and joy, and he loves doing it, giving you more than you could imagine and more than you need. And our problem is that most of the time, we don't appreciate it because we don't really notice it. I never ever found the $40 that I lost. I don't know if it'll turn up like in the washing machine someday or if it's just vanished, because I guess that can happen. But I hope I don't find it. Honestly, I'm at the point right now where I really hope that I don't find it, because the lesson that I learned from losing the $40 was that, hey, Aaron, you need to shut up about what you don't have because you still have more than enough. And I wonder what that is in your life. I mean, you're never going to see a commercial on the TV that says, you have lots of nice clothes. You have plenty of nice clothes. Please come to our store and buy more nice clothes. No, the message you're going to get is, you dress like a hillbilly most of the time, so come to our store if you don't want to look like a moron. That's what the commercials do. They just tell you, you don't have these things. Everyone's going to make fun of you. You need these things. This is a list of things you don't have that you need. And you need to stop every time that you see that message, every time you see that iPhone commercial just telling you about what you don't have, and you need to realize, you know what? I am a 7th grader, and I have a cell phone, and that's awesome. I don't need it, I don't require it, but I have it anyway. That is more than enough for me. That's what thankfulness is at the end of the day. It's recognizing that everything that you have in your life is plenty. Everything that God has given you is good and wonderful, and at the very least, we ought to notice it. And when we pray at the end of the night, say honestly, God, thank you for everything that you've done for me. For every great gift that you've given me, God, I just want to say thanks. And if there's something that I've missed, God, if there's something that I'm not seeing, make it clear to me, because I want to appreciate every single thing that you've done for me, not just the list of a few things that I've taken the time to notice. And that's the prayer that I want to pray with all of you right now. So will you bow your heads with me? God, you have given us more than we can imagine. You have given us more than we need. And most of the time, we look at all of that and say, God, give me more. But today we want to do something different. We want to say to you that we've noticed, that we appreciate it, that we think the gifts that you give are amazing, and we just want to say thank you. You've given us more than enough food. We've given us great families. You've given us things that we couldn't even imagine when we were kids. Thank you for all of those things, God, and thank you for blessing us in abundance and for always giving us more than we needed. I pray these things in your name. Amen.
And all of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love. is more than enough. You're the sacrifice. You are my supply, my breath of life. Still more awesome than I know. You are my reward, worth living for. Still more awesome than I know. All of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you is more than enough. You're my sacrifice of greatest price. Still more awesome than I know. And you're the coming King. You are everything. Still more awesome than I know. And all of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you, more than all I want, more than all I need. You are more than enough for me, more than all I know, more than all I can say. You are more than enough. All of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your